5, 4, 3, 2, 1.
And it's live.
This is Leicester Till I Die TV. Watch and subscribe on YouTube and listen on your podcast platform.
Hello, good evening, good afternoon, good morning, good night, good day, goodbye. How the devil are you all? Welcome along Leicester Till I Die TV, LTID TV. Thank you for joining us. If you are watching us live, excuse me, on YouTube, please join in with the chat and get your comments in. And if you are watching us on catch up, add your comments below. And if you are listening via your favourite podcast platform, thank you for lending me your ears. Look, hey, there's only the two of us today, but then when you've got handsome buggers like this, who needs women, Craig?
I mean, it's quality, not quantity, I would say, to be honest.
Definitely. Can't quite get Wout Fazer to come in. He came on yesterday's show. I don't know if you saw that at all.
No, I didn't know.
Did you not see Wout Fazer? Let me just see if I can get a suitable picture up. He very kindly came on because he was actually my man of the match.
Oh, what?
I knew you were going to say that. Can I just say, and I'm going to get the figures up here because I have got them somewhere. Here they are. Right, defensively, for Leicester, James Justin made 2 clearances, Cody 5, Thomas 5, Ndidi 5, Skip 0. 13 from Wout Fazer.
Wow.
And he did not commit one foul either.
What a defender.
Exactly. You know, how could I not make him man of the match? I don't think that one's going to... I'm just going to try and bring up this thing. But he very kindly agreed to come on and talk to us. Couldn't understand a bloody word he was saying, mind. But it was good of him to pop on. There we go. I could also use that joke for Steve Davis, of course. You know?
I think you could use it for quite a few people. I'm not sure Steve Davis, to be honest.
I don't know. Have you ever seen the rematch between him and Dennis Taylor?
No, I've not. Was he wearing one of them?
He was indeed. He was indeed. I'm trying to think who else. Sporty Spice? No. Ginger Spice. What about Ginger Spice?
I don't know, but I'm sure the listeners and viewers can, or maybe not the listeners because they've not had to put up with that. But the viewers, I'm sure the viewers can make some suggestions. The instant one, the one that came to mind was Yossa Hughes from the Boys from the Black Stuff. Gives a job. Gives a job.
Yes, exactly. Well, the one I thought, and you missed your opportunity there, I thought you might go for, of course, was Old Spice. Hey.
I see you more of a high karate kind of guy.
No, well, okay then. If we are talking about that, back in the day, and who can forget high karate? Mm-hmm. But my aftershave of choice was denim.
Was it?
Yes. You look very much like a brute man to me.
I am just brute. I am a brute. I mean, that's it.
No, come on. What was your aftershave? Did you splash it on all over?
I went for one of the lesser known ones. It was Femerim. Pheromones. That's it. Pheromones for the ladies.
That does sound like an injection you'd have these days.
It does. I can tell you that it didn't work.
Did it not? Oh,
No.
I will ask your good lady about that. The other one I used a lot of course, was cedarwood. I was down with the kids. Even when I was a kid.
That's the one that's the one that they got from Avon when they didn't want to splash out on one of the more expensive ones.
Probably. I knew how to get the women, I'll tell you. Right, let's say hello to a few people. Ronald says good evening. Prashant says good evening. Craig says hello. Blue Fox, hello, Chris, Craig, and everyone in the chat. Craig was asking where was FaZe tonight. Well, I brought him in for you, Craig. LDH said there are no words for that hair. Probably not. Cider spice.
Yeah.
That's me. That's my new Twitter handle.
Yeah. Cider spice. Noir.
Evening all. Stick to your short hair and bowl cap, Chris. A girl was told me they all loved Dracar Noir, so I wore it for 20 years. I don't remember that one. Do you?
No, I think Steel Panther, I think, is the one to go for these days.
You sure it's not Lynx Africa?
No, Steel Panther. If you know, you know.
I don't know, so I will carry on with my Lynx Africa. Anyway, welcome to QVC.
50% of the time, it works all the time.
I had to think about that then. But like I say, QVC, Perfume Hour, welcome along. Discounts on all your favourite perfumes. You can tell that we've not really got an awful lot to talk about tonight. The club, well, look, waiting for the club to make an announcement about anything is sort of like waiting for the lift to stop on your floor. It's never going to happen. We obviously, the manager, is he going? Is he staying? And I want to start because we are going to be talking about the new manager, whoever that may be, who will be taking us out of or trying to get us out of the Championship next year. Few of the contenders there, as you can see, maybe not all Supermen, but we'll find out. I just don't know what to make with Ruud, because when you look at his press conference, he's coming out and saying, my job is to leave Leicester in a decent position to move forward, which makes you think he's leaving. And then he comes out and he's saying, like, well, I've told them the sort of players we need to be getting in. So that makes you think he's staying. I mean, it's mixed.
It is all the way through, I think. I mean, we have to become experts at reading between the lines, because, he's coming out and saying that he's been asking for a meeting for quite a while to try and get themselves aligned, whatever that means. And he's not had that meeting. Now, that's either A, because they've decided that they're going to sack him, but only if they get someone that they really want, not sack him and then go scouting around. So they're looking behind the scenes. Could be B, that they've actually offered it and they're waiting on someone. Or C, which I think is the more likely one, is they're not sure. Like a lot of fans are at the moment, because, you look over the last 4 games and are you starting to see, some kind of idea of how he wants to play and with the players that he'd like to play? Is the message getting through? And I looked up earlier. It reminds me a lot. Obviously, the way it's gone has been a lot worse, and all the stats are shocking. But I look back to Martin O'Neill, who suffered a really dodgy start, shall we say. Ruud has won 4 of his 25 games. O'Neill won 2 of his first 15, which in any, is not an auspicious start.
No.
We all know that very early on he was clinging to his job. Fans were up in arms and wanted him out. Famously, in one home game, I think they got a draw. Muzzy Izzet had just come into the club. And then he became one of the most successful managers, most loved managers that we've had. So sometimes these things can happen, that it takes a little bit of time just to get your feet under the table. And then there's a switch, turned. And, whether Ruud has started to turn that and getting people on side, I don't know. And I think this is the big thing. I don't think any of us know. And I pretty much think the club are in the same thing. It's almost like they're clinging on, hoping for like 4 points out of the last 2 games, and you leave it on a bit of a high over the last 4 or 5 games, and there's something positive to cling to.
I mean, the other thing that I have heard, and again, look, they're all rumours, is that they're waiting until the 1st of July for PSR, then they can pay him off.
Yeah.
I mean,
that doesn't make any sense from a footballing perspective. It makes sense from a bank balance, but it makes no sense whatsoever from a footballing perspective.
It doesn't, but we're down anyway.
Yeah. So what are you doing for the first month of the season? We did well under Maresca because we got him in early, and he was already going after transfer targets. We got most of ours in pretty early. So you come back in July, late June, July, you've got your players in, you've got your manager in, and you hit the ground running. And that's why we had a really good start. And the likes of Southampton, I think they were fairly late. Their players were hanging on whether they could sell players or not. Leeds the same, and we kind of got our noses ahead and clung on that way. I don't think it makes any sense. All you've got there is players who don't know what manager they've got, whether they're likely to be in favour, likely not. Yeah. And if you're one of those who was on the fence about staying or leaving, and you've got no manager in place, surely that makes your mind up.
Yes, it does. And one thing we've accused this club of doing so much under top is not learning from the past. And they've only got to look at that and say, well, actually, we were the most successful of the relegated clubs. Why was that? Because we got a player in. A manager in early. Now, is nobody at the club going, hang on, guys, maybe we need to do this? And this is the thing is that, we just don't know. And if suddenly we are seeing what Ruud is, the way he's trying to play, what's happening? Because he's playing the way that he used to play. He's playing the formation the way he used to play, and pretty much the same players that he used to play.
Yeah, I think there's the little tweak here and there, and I think a lot of the players are not as comfortable, shall we say, because he has given other people a chance, and he knows that he has got some decent players on the bench. You saw Ayew getting taken off, and Ayew looked miserable, to be fair, which probably describes his performance. But
harsh. He was my deserves a mention at the weekend.
Okay, I'm not going to argue against you. I'm just picking on because he did look gutted to be coming off, but then you look at the substitutions that were made that added a lot more dynamism, a lot more legs with Ayew and Skip coming off, and we sort of turned it round. I know you could argue that Forest had chances, but we had chances. We could have won it near the end as well. Yeah. But it's almost like you got a little view of what this team could be like if we stopped messing about with formations and individual roles and just went out and played football, on the hoof, as it were. Because when the play was breaking down and we were winning the ball back, we were flooding forward, and we haven't seen that a lot. For a long, long time this season, we've not had that many people in the final third. So, maybe they're buying into him, and maybe they're playing for him a little bit more than they were earlier in the season.
Do you think that maybe some players don't feel like, well, I'm going to be picked anyway?
Yeah, that's what I mean. I think the comfort zone has been removed from them. Players that were in and not in. Others will be feeling unfortunate to be left out, but you've got these youthful players coming through. There is a bit of dynamism on the bench, and it's difficult. We can always say, yeah, he should be playing them early or he should be starting them, but I think he's trying to be fair to them as well. A lot can go wrong when you're starting a game. You come on with 20 minutes, 15 minutes to go, and just being told to enjoy yourself. There's less pressure, and I think he's using Monger in the right way, to be honest.
And there is a lot of that, isn't there? We always say once you actually are relegated, or once you know that you actually save, you can actually let the shackles off. I mean, Southampton got a draw against Man City. I mean, where the hell did that come from?
I think they were all shackled to the post by the sound of it.
or they played a 9-1, did they? 9-0-1 or something. I'm looking at these last two games, and look, what was I just put up then? Tony Smith said main threat we had on Sunday was long throw-ins until the last 10 minutes. We had, and I don't know how often I can say this, at one point we were ahead of Notts Forest on the XG.
Yeah.
And we ended the game with more touches in their box than they had in ours. Now, all right, we didn't beat them, and the week before we'd beaten Southampton, but I would tend to say Forest are going for a Champions League. Southampton were down anyway with us. I would say the draw against Forest was a hell of a lot better performance and result than the one against Southampton.
Yeah, I think that's a fair point. I think we get sort of swayed a little bit because it's Forest. Take away the name Forest, and you think, right, this is a team that could go back to third in the table. Fighting for the Champions League spots if they'd have won that game. So you're playing against a good team. They're not going to roll over and let us play our football. What you need to do is stay in those games, particularly when we're not we're not one of the best 17 teams in the league, are we? So you've got to take that into account. Yes, we may be, our threats were from long throw-ins or whatever, but we were in the game. I don't think at any point we looked like we're going to be overrun.
No.
And as I say, it's a relegated team against someone going for third in the league. So take away the name Notts Forest, and it was a creditable performance.
I think probably one of the best of the whole damn season, to be honest with you. Looking at the opposition, like you said, taking away the name. Terry said there he wants Ruud to stay. I'm actually looking at those last couple of performances and thinking, maybe, was Ruud perhaps too scared to make those sort of changes, if you like? Dropping Samari and things like that, and Vestergaard until we were relegated because he thought he had to play the names.
It's difficult, isn't it? Because, with the best will in the world, he's not come with a great track record. It's not like he's, as a great player as he was, he's not come with a great managerial record that people will be in awe of, and let's face it, we've got some big characters in that dressing room. And people who carry a lot of influence, and it's almost like you need to win over the leaders in the dressing room. We haven't got many leaders on the pitch, sadly, but you need to win those people over and get them to buy into what you're trying to achieve. And I don't know whether you would look at it from the Cooper days through to Ruud that the players thought they were better than they actually were. So you've got a lot of attitude to try and deal with, and you could see a lot of cockiness going into those games. You mentioned Fars had a good game, but he would go into games, almost like not really caring. It was more about what he wanted to do rather than the team, and there was no team ethic. And I think you've seen over the Wolves was a shocking performance. So let's not get away from that. But the Liverpool game, the Brighton game where we came back, the Liverpool game, Southampton, and then Forest. That's a team that had a little bit more team energy about them, a little bit more fight, a little bit more, cohesion in terms of wanting to do something together. And it seemed more like a team than it has done for the majority of the season.
Totally, and I've got to say, with my Faye's Man of the Match award, that was purely probably the drink, but I have to say it's because he has been so goddamn awful the rest of the season that he actually did a decent game. And Jordan Ayew, I thought for that first 45 minutes, if you gave a Man of the Match for the first 45 minutes, he was there. And he didn't start the second half well, but in that first half, I thought we were actually the better team for a lot of it.
I have to admit, I didn't see the first half. I was at the old Leicester charity, Raw Stars charity game down at Anthony Nomad, so I was down there, and then I saw the second half. So I take on board your comments about IU first half. I didn't see it, so if you said we were the better side, then and you're not usually one for giving them praise where it's not due, Chris. So I'll take your word for it.
No, I mean at about 36 minutes, we had a better XG than them, and Ayew didn't start the second half well. But I look at that and I'm thinking, well, like, is he going to get a tune out of Faze? Looking at that game. Therefore, maybe we don't need to get rid of him. Ayew, suddenly I'm looking at a player now that Vardy's leaving, that if he plays in that central role, because Ruud, again, and hopefully Ruud's learning as he's going along, because putting Ayew on the wing, for me, doesn't work. No. Stick him in the centre. He'll hold that ball up for you. That's what he's good at. He'll go down if you think he can get a foul out of it. That's what he's good at. Maybe taking the free kicks he's not particularly good at, but he's not bad at rebounds. But if he can hold that ball up for El Kanous if he's still here, Alves if he's not, Mavididi and Fatawu, I'm suddenly thinking he's not a bad choice to have up front.
No, and particularly in the Championship where, you need a little bit more guile. The standards have improved year on year in the Championship. There's a lot more football played, but sometimes a little bit of experience doesn't do you any harm, particularly if you've got some dynamism around you.
Do you think, just to go back, before we start then looking at whether it could be Ruud or not, you mentioned earlier about them going into those games thinking, we're Leicester. We've won the Premier. And do you think that was because that sort of big-headedness was because we had done at one point 17 points clear, of second place in the Championship? Did they come up thinking they were better than they possibly were?
Maybe they did, but I think I know it's very easy to say these are professionals who are paid a lot of money, but if you were a place of employment for the last 3, 4, 5 years, and you really enjoyed, your manager, the owner or whatever, and then all of a sudden he just leaves without any notice, and someone new comes in with some new ideas, asks you to do things that you're not comfortable with. It can take some time to get used to that and to buy into what that person wants to do. And obviously the club decided that they weren't going to give Cooper time to see that through. Like, Ruud has been given more time than Cooper. And I think whether they felt sorry for themselves a little bit that they were being asked to play in a way that I could still see, and I said this to Scott when we're watching games, you can see the Maresca in a lot of these players still, whereby they look to keep possession rather than take a chance. And I think that's what they came up with. And then you've got Cooper, who wants to be a bit more advanced. It's almost like the players are having to fight their natural instincts. They've been drilled so much over a season, and that has come with a lot of success. All of a sudden now that man's gone. Someone else is coming in who wants you to maybe run a bit further, tackle a bit harder. And I think that sort of knocked them off cue. And then once you get into a bad start, it's really hard to sort of come back.
That is an excellent point, because it sounds like you've actually been there, and I know I have. Where you're in a job, and then a new guy comes in above you, who probably knows less about the particular company than you do, and he says, "Right, I want you to do this," and you find yourself turning around and saying, "Well, we've not done it like that before."
No, and that new manager has new favourites. Some people are in, some people are out, and you start thinking, well, what have I done wrong? And it can really shake things up. So, and that's why I go back to, you've got to be a really strong character and get people on board very quickly. And if you don't get the key members on board, and it sounded like, you hear things about whether Vardy's got more influence than he should have, and I think he probably has. But if he's one of the leaders not buying into Cooper and maybe one or two of the others, then it's very difficult, and you can imagine it. You saw it when they went to, was it Copenhagen? Yeah. In the bar with Harry Winks. I miss you, Maresca. That was a perfect example of the feelings inside that club at the minute. The manager they loved has gone, and you've replaced him with a half-rate version. And I'm not saying Steve Cooper is that, but you can see that's what the players thought. And all of a sudden, it's like, and they could be angry upstairs. They go, why the hell have you done that? Because I would imagine they would have been thinking, maybe we're going to get Potter who plays exactly the same way. This is exciting, blah, blah, blah. All of a sudden, you get someone who wants to play a totally different way. A lot of this comes into it. A lot of this mentality side of football is often overlooked. And you think, you paid God knows how many thousands a week, go out and perform. But the mental side of things can throw you off. It
can. And look, Liverpool got it right. Doug's in there. Hi, Doug. Going from Klopp to slot. It is a gamble. It was a gamble when we took Maresca on. We took Maresca on. Had he not come from Manchester City, who 6 days before that had just lifted the Champions League trophy, had he not been a Pep disciple, we probably wouldn't have been very happy at getting him. So you don't know when you take anybody else on.
No, I would also say, let's look at the first 6 months or even the first season of Arteta at Arsenal.
Yes.
The majority of those fans would have had him out of there quite easy.
Let's look at the first, is it 4 seasons of Arteta? I think it's pretty much changed, doesn't it?
Sometimes it takes time, and you've got to get your own players in who believe in you as much as you believe in them, because you brought them to the club. You're the one who's chosen them, as it were. And all of that, there's so much more to it. And it's really very easy to just look at what goes on the pitch and think that's all there is to the life of a footballer.
If you don't hear from me for 3 or 4 days, would you please ring the emergency services and get them to come out? Because in the last couple of days, I've started giving Wout Faes man of the match. Jordan Ayew deserves a mention, and I'm actually saying Ruud Van Nistelrooy might not be the worst choice next season.
And throw into the mix, you've agreed with me a few times already today. So,
well, yes. So, please, if you don't hear from me, I've jumped out the window or thought I was Superman or something. Watford, it says here, just appointed the manager that is bottom of the league at real vote. I can't not even attempt to say that. Yeah, I didn't even know that they had sacked the manager, to be honest with you. But there we go. So, based on 2 results, and let's just say, if you look up football fan in the Oxford English Dictionary, the word next to it is fickle. But at the moment, I am kind of thinking, maybe with time. Look, let's have a look at who is on. And I sent you this list earlier. Funnily enough, because we're not actually looking for a manager, very few, I could only find one betting company that actually got odds on the next manager for Leicester. And this one is Bet Victor. And of course, as we always say, gambling is not the answer to any money problems. And when the fun stops, stop. But did you see Match of the Day Saturday night, Craig?
I think I caught up with some of it.
I think
Martin was on, wasn't he?
He was, yes. Yeah. Good, because I was starting to think then, hang on, was it Saturday or Sunday? Russell Martin was on.
It was Sunday, yeah.
Yeah. Was it Sunday? Was it?
It was because it was the day we played. So we played
Right. Yes, we played
whenever.
Sunday. Yes,
Yeah.
yeah. Well, Russell Martin was on Match of the Day on either Saturday or Sunday. Look, he is 5-4 favourite at the moment for the job. Again, and then look, I know it's very easy to talk a good job, but listening to him when he was doing sort of the assessment of the matches afterwards, I actually thought he talked a little bit of sense.
I think he's always come across as a manager who's got a very good stylist, and obviously, yeah, likes his mirror. But yeah, he's always come across as a very intelligent and thoughtful manager. But you've got to put that into results, and he's followed a pattern in every job he's had so far. That he starts really well, the fans get excited. Really, it starts well, possession football, and then it just fades. And that's what happened at Swansea. That's what happened at Southampton. You keep talking a good game, and someone will keep giving you a chance, and then the pattern turns again. And for me, there's nothing he's done other than play the same kind of football that makes him worthy of being top of that, because he's failed where he's been.
Excuse me. When you were saying about going in and starting off well and that, that sounded a bit like Claudio. I nearly said Claudia then. I'm thinking like, well, she might do a better job.
Claudio's doing very well in Italy at the moment. He's having a great season. So, but yeah, I say, obviously, Russell Martin did get them promoted, through the playoffs, because they tailed off pretty badly towards the end, but they did manage to get up. But again, he was so stubborn in the way that he wanted to play, so no pragmatism at all. Very much the same way with Company. We've seen people do this. You've got to find a halfway house. You can't go and think you can out football the teams that are being successful in the Premier League and have been playing that style for years. You've got to have a bit of realism about you. And the only manager that seems to have any of that really at the minute is Eddie Howe and maybe Thomas Frank, who would say that there's more than one way to win a football match, and you can have talented players who can keep possession, but they're forward thinking. And if your overriding aim is to just keep possession and have some great possession stats, it's not going to get you results.
No, it's not. When I was talking about Claudio, then when we signed him, I remember reading something from an Italian sports psychologist, saying that wherever Claudio went, he always started well. That first season, he always did well. That's when he sort of got his most success. And then after that, it trailed off. And yeah, it kind of did for us as well. Russell Martin, I think you have to look, and let's be honest with you, what other industry do you keep getting sacked and then keep getting offered new jobs that are equal to the one that you've just been sacked from? You may be sacked, let's say, from BP, but you're not necessarily going to get a job at Shell. You might end up at Jet Petrol or whatever, and Russell Martin, look, for me, and that's what I wonder, whether if we'd kept Enzo and he'd played that style, whether we'd have stayed up. I don't necessarily think we would have done. We'll never know, obviously. No. And something that Manny said, I suppose, which kind of got me to thinking, and I can see where he's coming from, is the club need to decide the style of football that he wants to play. And it has to then, if it sacks a manager playing that way, then it's got to replace with another manager that plays that way. I.e., if Ruud had come in maybe at the start and not Steve Cooper, might we have been better off because he was playing the similar way to Enzo? And that was in, like you said, that was in the player's mind.
Yeah, I mean, all due respect to Manny, but I was saying that for months before he said it. So, it's how it needs to be. You can't keep changing manager. These days, your club plays the same kind of football all the way through the age divisions. I mean, it's interesting just touching back on Russell Martin, whether if they'd given him more time, he would have had a chance with his young players coming through. Because I don't know if it's the under-21s or the under-18s have had a fantastic season at Southampton. So they've got a good youth program as well.
Beat Leicester, didn't they, in the cup as well?
Yeah. But yeah, I think it has to be that way. You have an identity as a football club, and then the manager comes in to continue that identity with the players that the people higher up have selected as this is the squad you've got to work with. Yes, you can then, suggest one or two players who you think may be key to knitting it all together. But there has to be an identity of the football club, and then the manager has to match it.
And that something else that you have been shouting about a lot, which you mentioned there, and quite rightly, is that under 23s, under 21s, under 18s, 19s, whatever, you play the same way, so that when you move up, you can it's like putting a shoe, a well-known shoe on, if you like, and you've been shouting about that for a long time, and.
I'm not going to. This is not a personal thing about Sean Dyche, who's another one who's on the list. Obviously, his second favourite.
Well, we were going to come on to him, so that's very nicely led into that. So we'll carry on. Yes.
So you're a youth player who's been coming through, taught how to play that kind of football, and then all of a sudden you're thrust into the first team with a manager who doesn't want you to play that kind of football.
Yes.
What kind of message does that send to those youngsters who are deciding whether to sign a new contract or whether to take the money on offer from Man City or Chelsea or whatever? Or does it show that there's a pathway that if I get into the first team, I'm going to be given the opportunity to play the way that I've been successful so far? Or am I going to come into a team where the idea is to just be as physical as possible and get the ball forward? And I know I'm oversimplifying Sean Dyche's football, and he does very often play to the players that he's got. But I'm not sure would that excite any player in this modern day? Would you be excited to go and play for Leicester City under Sean Dyche? I'm not sure.
I think, Dan is a big fan of this channel, a friend of this channel, I should say, Burnley fan. And I actually hope to get him on soon to talk more about Sean Dyche, because obviously he was at Burnley a long time. But he has said this to me in the past. A lot of people have said Sean Dyche had the success that he had with Burnley playing that way because those were the sort of players that he had, and those are the sort of players that he could afford to buy. Yeah. Now, obviously, Burnley are different now. They've got new owners, etc. David Moyes has gone into Everton, and look, he didn't want a relegation battle, but Everton was a big pull for him. We know that. And he's changed the style from Sean Dyche. Let's be honest with you, Sean Dyche would have kept Everton up this season. But if we say, looking at Sean Dyche, and he is now, say, second favourite at 6-4, he could possibly keep us up. Sorry, so he could possibly get us up, and he could probably keep us up for one season, but then you're not going to go on, I don't think. I know he got Burnley into Europe and what have you, but that was different times. But then that's a very short-sighted, short-term philosophy, isn't it?
It is, and because of the money situation, it may be that the club are prepared to sacrifice their ideals, in how they want to play and the kind of football they want their club to play, just to get back in the Premier League, to get the money, and if that's the case, then you have to look at it like that. It's a 2-year project, and then we move on and we hopefully go back to what we wanted to do. Sometimes you do have to take a step backwards to be able to take 2 steps forward, and I think that's where we are at the minute.
Yeah. I at one point, I was kind of, come on, get Sean Dyche in because he will get us back up. But I think also as well, do we want Sean Dyche that might get us back up straight away? And we don't know on points deductions or anything like that. That will have an effect as well. But let's say we don't have the points deduction. He might get us straight back up, where Ruud might not. It might take him 2 seasons. But that 2 seasons, would we come up a stronger team? As in, for example, Leeds now. You know, did we come up too soon before? Obviously, you want to get up as soon as you can. But I know we talked about this, I think, last week, a second season down there to get things right.
Yeah. I mean, potentially. I mean, you do want to bounce back all the time, but you'd have to try and take a positive if it was a good season, and you've come up just a little bit short in the playoffs. But the thing with Sean Dyche and I would say modern footballers these days, is Sean Dyche the kind of guy who can get you motivated when you've come through footballing academies? And a lot of the players, that are around these days have still come from academies. They've been at the bigger academies. They've gone down a couple of divisions and then they're coming back, and finding the way. If I'm a footballer, I love football. I want to play football. Do I want to be told that I'm not physical enough, or I need to crunch into that challenge, or this, that, and the other? Is that going to motivate me as a footballer to go and play good football? Is that what I came into football for? To be told to go and act like a rugby player on the football pitch? I'm not sure it is, and that's why, I think there's a time and a place for Sean Dyche, but those managers these days are few and far between, and there's a reason that those kind of managers are starting to fall out of fashion. The likes of Warnock, the likes of Tony Pulis never came back from Stoke. Allardyce, another job. Moyes has gone in at Everton. I'd be very surprised if he's there in 2 years' time, to be honest. I think he was brought in there to make sure they stayed up and had Premier League football when they move into the new ground.
Yes.
And football has moved on.
It has. No, it has. Sorry to interrupt there. Do you think we dodged a bullet with Cooper? Not Cooper, with Potter.
Potter?
West Ham fans are not happy.
No, they're not. But having said that, West Ham's are never happy. They want to play a certain kind of football, but as long as it wins.
Yes.
And then they got into Europe, won a European trophy, and then they wanted that manager out. I don't think West Ham fans are probably even more fickle than us.
Yes, you're very, very true there.
I don't know. I mean, Potter does like to play the kind of football. Is he a motivational giant? I'm not sure. But will he play a similar style to the way that the players had been used to? I would imagine, yeah.
Danny Roll is 2-1. Somebody that I think you were quite keen on at one point. Lee Carsley is 10-1. Gary O'Neill, God help us, is 14-1. They're the next three. Look, Lee Carsley, I'm not sure about. Gary O'Neill, I'd run a million miles and start supporting Bournemouth. And
was he that? I mean, was he that bad at Bournemouth, or did he lay some ground rules that someone else has now picked up?
I as you know, I live just outside Bournemouth, so a lot of my friends are Bournemouth fans, and I was actually out, funnily enough, last Wednesday with Craig, not yourself, with Bournemouth Craig, Paddy. And he actually feels that they were better than they actually were under Gary O'Neill. And he was a big supporter of him when he was at Wolves and thinks that he should have been given longer. And he was one of the reasons that I put Wolves in my bottom three to go down, because he was manager. But how do you get over a 9-0 defeat?
Yep.
And that's the problem. Funny thing was, how he got over losing 9-0 to Liverpool was come to Leicester and get a 0-0 with Brendan Rodgers. But once you've got that on your CV, it's a bit damning, isn't it?
Yes, it is. Yeah, it is. And, Hassan Hootel, had to leave the country eventually.
Yes. Although, can I just say, where is he?
Yeah.
Yeah, he is. There's a lot of them at 33-1, but he is 33-1.
Basically, I'm surprised we're not in at 33-1 looking at that list, to be honest, Chris.
Can I tell you, do you know when we got Nigel Pearson back for the second time.
Yeah.
Literally, if you remember, we were being linked with every man and his dog. I'm sure Yannick Vestergaard's dog was on the list somewhere. But every day we would wake up and it would be another favourite. I mean, in fairness, this time, and I know we've still got Ruud at the moment, but Russell Martin's pretty much been favourite for quite a few weeks now. But with that, every day somebody was different. So I'd copied off, one of these charts with everybody's name on, and I'd added, I think it was probably around 30 to 1, my name. Just to see that the reaction. Now, all right, I hadn't been going as long then, obviously, with the show, but in the group, and so many said, "Who's this Chris Forian? Is he worth a gamble?" And it just, like you say, you stick. I mean, let me just say, okay, Gary O'Neill is 14, David Wagner 16, Eden Terrich is 20 to 1. Oh my God, Stephen Gerrard is 20 to 1. But then there are a few names here I've never heard of. Johannes.
I had to look at. He's not long been sacked by Norwich.
Oh, good God! Yeah. All right, Sam Allardyce, Ralph Huthenthal, Pep Lindias.
Yeah, I think was he Klopp's assistant?
Well, that's it. I don't know. I really don't know.
I think he was someone's assistant.
Luke Williams.
Yeah, not sure on that one.
No. I mean, hang on, at 33 to 1. Here we go. You're go on, say it.
Big Gareth Southgate.
Yes, Big Gareth Southgate, who I had to defend on your behalf and got absolutely roasted for. Eric Ten Hag, and we've got
You're welcome.
Des Buckingham. Who? I mean, that's probably Bet Victor's owner's grandson or something. He's got, you could stick any names in there, couldn't you? Really?
Yeah.
But I know it is very much. I'm not going to go through them all. Those are the names that are on there, but it is always the usual suspects. But Manny did this a few weeks ago, and I know you've done it now. That you've gone and looked and come up with a couple of names that I'm probably not going to have heard of that could be very left field.
Yeah, one's a bit old school and one's up and coming, and so we'll do the old school first, and it's Kasper Hjulmand.
Oh,
okay. You probably don't recognise the name, but you'll recognise the guy. He was, for the past 10 years, I think, he was manager of Denmark. He was the Danish national manager. And he managed to pull together a team that overachieved based on a collective teamwork and team ethic. And, obviously you had Kasper there and Eriksson, and you saw that when Eriksson had his unfortunate incident playing for Denmark. But he got some really good results with that team. And if you're looking at someone who's got a little bit of experience, but is able to, pull together a team to pull and go in a single direction, then somebody like that who's never been mentioned, and I'm not sure he resigned in the end, whether he just had enough of international football, I'm not sure. So he's a free agent. I don't think he's gone back into football at all. So just somebody like that.
Yeah, I'm just looking on Transfer Market, actually. He is out of a job at the moment. He is 53 years old, so he's got, like you say, got the experience. He actually has won the Danish Championship.
Yeah.
Obviously, I'm not sure who that was with, but and he, as a Denmark manager, he played 54 matches. And he got 1.93 points a match on average. What we would do for that, eh?
Yeah.
And he has been an advisor at a couple of clubs. Nordjylland is his last club. 124 games, 1.44 points per game. And he likes, it says here, he likes a 3-4-1-2.
Yeah. So,
So he won't be picked because no way we're playing two up front. I'm sorry, that's your argument shot down there.
It is. And the only other one that I've looked at is a stretch. Let's say it's a stretch, and we would have got more chance if we were staying up in the Premier League. But if we were staying up in the Premier League, maybe we won't be looking for another manager.
Yeah.
But the last couple of managers to come out of Germany haven't done bad, I would say. Oliver Glasner at Palace has done a fantastic job coming from Eintracht Frankfurt. And the guy whose name I always forget, who's gone in at Brighton, has done a decent job this year as well. Now, he was with San Pauli and managed to get them promoted last season. It looks like they're staying up this season in the Bundesliga. But, you know, in argument of people who say they'll never leave the Bundesliga to come to Leicester City, there's a guy who just got the second team in Hamburg promoted into the riches of the Bundesliga. But he decided to go to Brighton because the Premier League is the place to be, and the Championship is a good place to earn your stripes, as Maresca found. He had a good season in the Championship, and all of a sudden he's a Chelsea manager. So, you know, I wouldn't do it down and saying because we're in the Championship, we won't be able to pull a manager of any caliber. So the guy I was looking at is a guy called Sebastian Hoeneß, and he's the Stuttgart manager at the moment. And they look like they're finishing kind of mid-table, 9th, I think. But what was impressive here is he's a manager who's done well on each step of his managerial ladder. He was in at Bayern Munich in their youth teams, under 19s, and then he got the under 21s job, or the Bayern 2, who play in the third tier of Germany. And I think he won the title with them. Then he went to Hoffenheim, did very well there, and then got the job at Stuttgart, and he's got them to the cup final that they're in this year. They're finished 9th. I was looking at the type of football that they play. I think they've got a +10 goal difference. They have a lot of decent high-scoring games, so he likes to play on the front foot. He plays the same kind of formation that we've been playing in the last couple of years, so it's like 4-2-3-1.
I was just going to say totally would fit in,
Yeah, exactly. And this is a middling club. Yeah, Stuttgart is a massive club, you know, in terms of what we are. You know, it's a 60,000-seater stadium, but they haven't got the stature of the bigger clubs in Germany. And who knows, somebody like that trying to make a name for themselves and get the next big move into the Premier League, you know, worth a question. But just a bit of a left field choice. But German managers are coming into vogue a little bit more, I think.
Yeah. Agent is Bulwark Sports GmbH, if you want to get in contact with them, Craig. Look, in the Bundesliga, 33 matches, won 13 of them, points per match 1.42. The Champions League, points per match 1.25. The German Cup, points per match 3. He played 5 games.
And this is the thing, you know, you may look at the stats and think, they're not great, but they're in the Bundesliga and we're a team that's in the Championship. So you're not going to get the top level managers coming. But if you can get somebody who's on the right trajectory, who's improved each team he's gone into, then that's the kind of thing that you need to look at.
He has also won, I don't know whether you saw this or not, but he's actually won the German third tier.
Yeah, which was with the Bayern second team. Those big clubs have teams in the lower divisions rather than having like an under 21s or whatever.
Right, got you. I mean, look, Stuttgart. He's German. His average term as a coach at the clubs has been 1.76 years. He's 43, so he's 10 years younger. And this is where the gamble has to be taken. Who'd heard as a manager of Martin O'Neill before he came to Leicester? He was at Wycombe, for God's sake. You know, yes, we all knew him as a player. Of course we did. But he came in with pretty much like, who is he sort of thing. Have you frozen, Craig? Oh, you're back.
I think I did. You did. I think we all did.
Oh, we all did with that. You did. We did. Everybody did. In, out, shake it all about.
I can hear you, Chris. I'm here.
Yeah. Sometimes you take like I say, Martin O'Neill. Who'd heard of him? it works out. Peter Taylor, who'd heard of him, it didn't work out. That's always a gamble when you take on as a manager. But those two names that you've said there, look, if he's prepared to go to a club that's in the third tier and get them promoted and then move on up, who knows? Like you say, the English football is the place to be, And, look, would Harry Kane sooner have a Premier League trophy or a Bundesliga trophy? I think we know. But I like the sound of both of those young men.
Exactly. It's a stepping stone, isn't it? And as I say,
yes.
Yeah.
Well, sorry, you froze again.
But as I say, Maresca goes from an assistant at Man City, wins the championship. Next minute, he's got the biggest club in the world. So,
and I was always
you've got to look at it as that point of view of would anybody come to the championship? Yes, they would.
Yes, and you because of course the thing that's always kind of worried me a little bit is if we do get an up and coming manager and they do get us promoted again, we're going to lose it. But that will happen with any manager. I'm sure if Ruud Van Nistelrooy gets us 17 points clear at the top of the championship next season and wins us back promotion, some clubs will be coming in for him. Not sure if you heard any of that at all, Craig. Can you hear me, Craig?
Yeah, I mean, it's breaking up a little bit. But no, I hear what you're saying, and that is, for a club the size of Leicester, whether it's players or whether it's managers, that's the chance that you have to take. That managers and players are going to go on to better things if they do well with us, and they ride on the back of our success.
They do. Right. Well, we're coming up to the hour anyway, but signal's going a little bit. It's this good weather. Honestly, the signal's bad if it's wet. It's bad if it's sunny. Just bad wherever we are.
Just if somebody can drop those two names into to John Rudkin, and let's see where we go.
Somebody did actually say that he's not heard of them. He's probably not heard of them. The other name on the list that we don't want dropping in is Steven Gerrard. But apparently he's not going back to Rangers, so he is available.
Excellent.
And hey, just think though, Craig. Just think very quickly. With Jamie Vardy not being here next season, Wayne Rooney.
Yeah, to be fair, all that success he's had so far.
Indeed. Well, look, we've lost our loan manager to Plymouth. Maybe we deserve somebody coming up the other way. Craig, thank you very much, mate. Go and enjoy Doc's left of the evening in the sun. Thank you so very much, and we'll see you. We'll see you soon.
Cheers. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you. Bye-bye. Thanks to Craig there. Signal's going a little bit, but we have been coming up to the end of the show anyway. I just wish we knew what was going on. We never will. That's the thing with this club. They like to keep everything under the skirt, as they say. But that's Susan Whelan for you. Thank you very much, everybody. If you haven't yet, please smash the likes. Please also subscribe if you're new. Click that notification bell. You'll never miss another show. And also, thank you for listening if you've been doing that via your favourite podcast platform. Thank you very much, Craig. All the best, mate. Take care. And thank you very much, Prashant, as well. And I will see you all probably Thursday for the Prediction League. Might have something coming up tomorrow. Not 100% sure. Like I say, click that notification bell. And you won't have to worry. You'll be notified. Take care, everybody. Go and enjoy the sun. See you Thursday. Goodbye.